lot of people talking about the games that excite them.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. I remember the drama a while back that like Persona would never come to Xbox, and I did go search Twitter for that phrase and like found some of those tweets, and I was like, okay, because then I started to wonder, were they real? Because then there were all these people like, well, I never said that. Nobody ever said that. Not a single person
who ever
said that.
Possibly this.
It's like,
well, yeah.
Okay, they did exist. There were people who were very proud that Persona was never coming to Xbox, who now are like, of course it's coming to Xbox. It's very cool. They weren't like major. It wasn't like IGN said it. And then like as a result of the season, it also showed me kind of where I want to be putting my attention moving forward, because I think it's such a great time in gaming that if people aren't just genuinely excited about the games that are coming up, it doesn't really seem like a time where a lot of bitterness is valid. And so, for example, to pick on somebody that's easy for everybody to pick on, Kotaku put out an article, I think like a week or two ago. I want to say the most recent issue is they said there weren't enough like female protagonists or something in games. And then it resulted in this whole thread of everybody naming like female protagonists from like Mrs. Pac-Man forward. And they like implied that, I don't know, something about their implication. If I remember correctly, it was something about their implication was like that Forspoken was like the first time people have ever tried to have a female protagonist, and that's why people were angry. It's like,
no,
just a reminder of like, I keep trying to push Kotaku out of my mind.
Yeah,
this season just tells me it's like, no, and they're done. And I don't want to respond to their tweets, and this is already more engagement than I want to give them. I just want to be done. I just want to block anything with Kotaku, and I wish that Twitter would somehow be good enough that like if you retweet Kotaku, I don't want to see that either. I want it all gone.
You can mute phrases and things like that.
So, and so I just want it gone, because they're literally just not even worth the base fundamental attention at this point, because it's been an entire year of nothing but incredible news. Even if there's a company you don't want to support, right? Blizzard's had a lot of reasons not to support them over recent years, and I understand and respect that decision. You can still, even at a distance, say, but I don't hate people that are saying they're enjoying Diablo 4. I don't hate people that say Dragonflight's a step in the right direction. I don't hate people that say, hey, I took a job at Blizzard and I'm actually really impressed with how much the culture and the salary and the things are going here. That I have friends who have taken jobs there that had worked there in the past and are saying it's better than it's ever been before. I have friends that have continued to work there and they're saying it's better than ever before. Is it flawless? No. But like, we're in a season where there's enough good news that I think my takeaway wasn't any one game. It was that like, there's no reason for me to spend my time hating on a game. And we've had those seasons where you do have just valid frustration. You know, when you talk about like changes in monetization or vaulting content or like a group of gamers being lied to or their accounts being deleted or anything like that, like there are very valid times to be upset. But I think the awards week and stuff was generally all good news. So I think it really just showed me like who I want to watch for the next year when we get to the end of the year and Twitch and YouTube or whatever, when we get all these reports that start to say like, where did you spend your time? I want to spend my time watching people that are just excited to play games, because it's a great year to play games.
I think that's the ultimate like mic drop. Like when you look at, I literally just saw an article pop up and made me happy. It was like, after the demo for Final Fantasy 16, this narrative of this game not being a Final Fantasy game, this narrative of that, like, there's just been these kind of themes that pop up that, like, when you think about the concept of the social media and how these get hijacked, it could be just somebody who's just like, I'm going to put crap out in the world and see what happens. People react to it, discuss it, and it becomes like a part of the narrative. Some people like, oh, I do agree. I like this Final Fantasy 8, and we haven't seen anything. Like, everybody's got their, their favorite kind of, part of the franchise. But what it ends up being is like, once you go hands-on, like all of that goes away. And we see this happen a lot, especially with games. I saw it happen a lot with Blue Protocol. Someone said, like, I'm so glad Blue Protocol doesn't have any drama in it. I'm like, oh, you just wait. Like, every community will end up having that, but it always looks different per community. And I was like, we've already had 2 rounds of it. We had the let's try to convince Brian that this game is canceled round, which, like, when you talk about people going back and deleting things, I was like, here's it in the video. Oh, here they deleted that statement of this game is canceled, and Bandai Namco is a bunch of cowards. It's like, well, at least they went back and said, you know what, I'm just going to delete that off my history, but it's always fun that I have that stuff in video form. And then the other one was just the censorship aspect. It's like, we all have these different rounds, and a lot of that comes out of not being able to play the game, not being able to go hands-on with the game, living in the world of expectation and theory, and then adapting that thought that somebody has and making that like an actual fact. Oh, did you hear that Yoshi P hates Final Fantasy, and that's why it's an action combat system? Oh, it makes complete sense. And then you're like, oh, I actually played it. It's a really great game. And then that whole part of the community just gets quiet because the evidence is over here. It's like the work speaks for itself. And so that's where it's like, yeah, okay, people are just talking right now. There's going to be a lot of quiet people on June 22nd. There's going to be a lot of quiet people when they, when you're experiencing like the game.
I'm only seeing positivity everywhere I'm looking.
Yeah,
I haven't seen anybody saying anything negative.
That's all I like. I've been curating my feeds because it's also very curated. So if you engage with the negative,
console wars has been all the negative for me.
Yeah.
Console wars. Occasionally there's, a moment about a creator or something like that. There's been some weird like creator clashing going on right now. But that honestly just feels like because there's nothing better to talk about. Like it's because we're waiting for the good games to release.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, I feel like we've gotten a lot of good games this year already. Back to the point, like people dogging on Forspoken. Like if you played it and you're like, that wasn't for me, I respect the hell out of it. You don't have to like it. But I'm like, yeah, like outside of the value proposition for the money, I've really enjoyed that experience. And it's going to be, I would say though, Forspoken is a vastly sharply contrast experience to that of 16. Like you can feel immediately like the tone, the difference, the characters, and so it's like, yeah. And the funny thing will be, and people will talk about it, is that Forspoken came out as a $70 game and 16 came out as a $70 game. One of those is really a $70 game. It's like maybe even more for some cases. So like it's hard because people make these false equivalencies between these different things. But like this year alone, I've been enjoying like every moment that I get to game. And I think that's the thing. It's that if you're not having fun playing the game that you're playing, you need to go find something fun to play, because that's ideally what this is about. And maybe to a degree, maybe that is some people's game, complaining on the internet. Like maybe that's the game that they have fun, is to see how many tweets or retweets or whatever they can get, or what kind of content or frustration they can vent out. I don't know. Some people play that game.
I can't balance. I want to get some 14 stuff done because the patches have been pretty on point lately, and 6.4 is massive, and I want to get back into Dragonflight, and Guild Wars had some stuff going on, and New World's on the horizon, but like I'm spending a ton of time with Diablo 4 because it's new, and that means that like Tears of the Kingdom's behind, and so like it's actually the bigger issues when I want to sit down and watch TV or a movie. Like those have been mediums that for me have not been keeping up.
Yeah.
And so like I'm like, I guess I'm just gonna go play another game. Gaming's way better right now.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's amazing.
Way better. So it's been a good time to be a gamer. For Warhammer 40K fans, congrats on the week. Hopefully there's some good news and nuggets in there as the rules all slide slowly out this week.
Yeah.
It's been an exciting week. It's roughly every 3 years we go into a new edition. So exciting time to be model building and rolling some dice. Yeah.
I want to bring up what Fluppy here says. Bring back Fluppy Dog says, planning leave for Final Fantasy 16 is not the worst idea. Maybe I should follow suit. And I tell you, the hardest thing about it, because I don't have any PTO because we had the baby and I used it all there. The hardest thing will be on the 22nd when I go to work and then the game is out and playable. Thankfully, I get to play that afternoon, evening, and then Friday afternoon, evening as well. And I was talking to a couple of my coworkers about it, and they're like, oh yeah, not feeling so good today. You can take a sick day. I was like, yeah, it's gonna be real awkward when they're like, oh, Brian called in sick and he's live streaming Final Fantasy 16. I was like, I don't get to play that card. I don't get to play that card because I want to have that record again. Like I really enjoyed that I have that record of Endwalker and finishing this like epic. And I wish I had the record for every kind of part of that expansion, like as an archive to go back on and look back on at some point in the future. But I that's what I was like, I want for 16. And that's actually what I'm doing also for Final Fantasy 4. Like hell, the Pixel remasters alone, Chris, like if you haven't ever got a chance to go and pick that up, like that, even on Switch, like when you're just like in the airport, like it's a great experience because you can boost up your experience gain per fight to 4. So it really just cuts down the grind and you're just kind of enjoying the story and kind of playing through it very kind of casually. And it's very enjoyable. I really am quite pleased with that. And honestly,
Maybe on the way to FanFest.
Yeah, maybe on the way to FanFest, that'd be a really good thing to pick up. But the thing that I've also like appreciate about that is that I hear people who want to see Final Fantasy kind of come back to its roots. We saw that with 9, and 9's beloved, and we're hearing about a remake rumors for 9. But on that note, I'd be fine if they decided to make another, like they took the pixel remasters and you almost kind of have these different avenues for Final Fantasy. Like you have that kind of style, like they make a whole new game, 2D, like that sprite based pixel remaster. How often do you think they could come out with a Final Fantasy kind of in that kind of style? And I would venture to bet roughly every couple of years. And imagine if all of a sudden you have like these different kind of styles, right? You have the 7 remake style, the 16 style.
Was coming back in like 2026.
Yeah. Well, for its 25th anniversary, yeah.
I have struggled to not replay that game over the last couple of years because I went back and played some of the games in my childhood that were like B tier, A tier,
yeah,
right? And some of them didn't hold up, and so like I've been afraid to go back and touch my S tier games when it was on Game Pass for a bit, and I downloaded it and did not play it because I'm like, what if it doesn't hold up? Like, what if so much of what Final Fantasy X in my head is the greatest game of all time, tied with Ocarina of Time? What if those two games? What if I went back and played them, and they don't hold the same place? The soundtrack should be, I assume the soundtrack I would have been off my Walkman and probably on burned CDs that could hold maybe 8 to 10 tracks, and ran out of batteries every 2.5 hours. I assume that's about it. And so I'd have to go back and find my CDs because the soundtrack would have been whatever top 40 was in the late 90s or whenever that was. That would have been probably pre-Napster too, so it's probably only 1 or 2 artists because I probably didn't have enough discs. It's probably Jock Jams, Jock Rock, roller skating music.
Now that's what I call music. 1940, like 93. Woo!
Yeah. Now hits 4. So, I don't know. I just wonder if it wouldn't hold up. So I'm excited. Maybe a remaster is a good way to like bring that back in and say like, they're going to bring it up to 4K. They're going to bring it up to, and they're going to spin it for a more adult artist, more adult audience. So they're going to spin it.
Right.
Like if it ends up being like 7 is taking on concepts that I wouldn't have been ready to take on when it released the first time.
See, that's what I'm actually really enjoying about. So I played it and streamed some Final Fantasy IV because that for me was the Final Fantasy that I fell in love with, right? Like I originally played 1. I didn't like 1. And I got Dragon Warrior as a part of my Nintendo Power, and it was like, dude, Dragon Warrior, aka Dragon Quest, this is like, oh, this is so good. And so I was really down that avenue. And then Super Nintendo comes out, Final Fantasy 2. Brian, you got to try it. And I was like, I played it, and I was like, this is amazing. Holy smokes. I love this experience. So I'm playing through it already, and I've only touched the opening. I got through, all the way out to the desert. And picked up like I can't even remember names right now, despite it. Like if as I'm playing it, I literally so far been like, oh, I remember there's a treasure chest over here. I haven't touched this game in 30 years, but that's the impact that it's had on me. But going into it, it's like, oh, I talked to Kane right at the beginning, and he kind of alludes that like his father died, and his father was a dragoon, and that's what made him sign up to be a dragoon. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did not resonate with that. I didn't even remember that. But as a parent, I can tell you hands down, like that was actually a really powerful line in a Super Nintendo Final Fantasy game. I was like, holy crap. And that's one of the things that I'm like, I want to go back and experience all of this